Welcome to HardScript.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She took off her ring like it meant nothing, slid it off her finger, placed it in her purse, and said, "I'm single for the night." I remember the way she laughed when she said it. Sharp, reckless, like she was daring the universe to catch her. By morning, that same laugh had turned into a sound I'll never forget. A broken kind of crying, echoing through an empty bedroom. My name is Aaron Cole. I'm 34. I fix engines for a living. Small-town shop, nothing fancy, oil changes, brakes, the kind of work that keeps people moving. I've never been rich, but I've always been steady. Dependable. I go to work, come home, and take care of what's mine. Until that night, what was mine was a woman named Jenna, my wife. A freelance makeup artist who'd been chasing bigger dreams lately. City jobs, luxury clients, people with names you read in magazines. I didn't mind. I wanted her to shine. That Friday, she got a call to work a private event up in the hills outside Nashville. "Just another styling gig," she said, packing her brushes, curling iron, and her one designer dress, the one I bought her last Christmas. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving, told me not to wait up. I didn't. I trusted her. That's the thing about quiet men. We trust until the facts tell us not to. It started with a photo. Someone tagged her in a story on social media around midnight. The kind of luxury party I'll never see in my lifetime. Glass walls, champagne towers, men in tailored suits. And there she was, in the background, not behind the scenes doing makeup, in front of the camera, laughing, drink in hand, wearing the ring I gave her, until she took it off. A caption under the video read, "Jenna Cole, single for the night." They thought it was a joke. I didn't text her, didn't call, just watched the video again. The man next to her wasn't from our world. White linen shirt, gold watch that probably cost more than my truck. A Nashville investor. One of those millionaire types who throw charity parties to show off their success. He whispered something in her ear, and she leaned in close. Too close. When she stumbled home at dawn, makeup smudged, heels in her hand, I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table. She looked surprised to see me. "You're up early," she said. I didn't answer, just nodded toward the coffee pot. She poured herself a cup, trying to act normal, but her hands were shaking. The ring was back on her finger. I could still smell the cologne on her dress that wasn't mine. I didn't ask where she'd been, didn't accuse her, just stood up, walked past her, and went to the bedroom. Packed a small duffel bag, some clothes, my tools, the essentials. Left my wedding ring on the windowsill beside her half-empty cup of coffee. Didn't leave a note. Didn't take my phone. Just got in my Ford F-150 and drove away before the sun came up. By the time she realized I was gone, I was already 3 counties out. No calls. No messages. Silence. That's what I chose. Because sometimes, silence says everything words can't. The road out of town was quiet that morning. Just me, the hum of the engine, and a sky turning from steel gray to pale gold. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just drove. Sometimes distance is the only thing that makes sense when everything else stops doing so. I crossed the county line before 8, stopped at a diner off the highway, and sat there for an hour staring at a plate of cold eggs. My phone buzzed on the table, 12 missed calls, for messages from Jenna. I didn't read them. I turned the phone off and slid it into my jacket pocket, like sealing a door behind me. Jenna and I had been together for 6 years, married for 4. She used to laugh when I told her I didn't need much to be happy. "You're too simple for this world," she'd say, half teasing, half admiring. Maybe she was right. Her world was changing faster than mine ever could. First came the high-end clients, then the influencer parties, the luxury brands she'd tag online. What started as makeup brushes and contour palettes turned into invitations to penthouses and yacht events. I never said a word against it. I thought she was building a future. I didn't realize she was drifting away from ours. That morning, I drove to the river, parked the truck by the bridge, and sat on the tailgate, watching the current move. It was steady, silent, but powerful. That's what I wanted to be. Not loud, not angry, just unshakable. I took out my wallet, removed the one photo I still carried of us. Jenna at the shop, grease on her cheek from helping me one summer day when the air conditioner broke. I folded it once, then tucked it back inside. Not ready to throw it away yet, but close. By noon, I made up my mind. I wasn't going back. I'd pack what I needed later, move my business to another town, start fresh under a new name if I had to. Let her chase her million-dollar nights. I was done being her quiet backup plan. The kind of man you only remember when the lights go out. When I finally turned my phone on again that evening, the screen filled with messages. The last one stood out. Just 3 words from Jenna. Please come home. I read it once. Then I deleted it. The thing about silence is, it only hurts the guilty when it's real. And mine was. 2 days passed before anyone noticed I was gone. Jenna's best friend, Claire, called the shop asking if I'd seen her that weekend. I told her I wasn't there anymore. The silence on the line told me she already knew why. Rumors travel fast in small towns, faster than truth. By then, I was already 2 hours away, in a motel that smelled like bleach and cigarette smoke. I paid in cash. Wrote my name as A. Cole. No one asked for details. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling fan, hearing the echoes of her voice in my head. She had a way of saying my name that made me believe everything was okay, even when it wasn't. I kept thinking about that night, the way she slipped the ring off like it meant nothing. Maybe she thought it was harmless, a thrill, a way to feel seen among people who lived in glass towers and gold cars. But it wasn't harmless. It was a declaration. I'm single for the night. You don't come back from words like that. I spent those first few days planning, not grieving. I sold my half of the shop to my partner, took the cash, and kept only what I needed to start over. Tools, my old records, the truck. Everything else could stay behind. I wasn't running. I was erasing. There's a difference. Running means you're afraid they'll find you. Erasing means you don't care if they do. On the 3rd morning, I got another message from her. Aaron, please talk to me. It wasn't what it looked like. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The truth never needs defending. And people who betray you always think the silence is an invitation. It's not. It's the verdict. Later that night, as I drove through the outskirts of Memphis, I saw a billboard with her face on it. A cosmetics ad for one of those local influencer brands. Jenna Cole, beauty beyond the ordinary. I laughed under my breath. Maybe that's what she wanted all along, to be something beyond ordinary. She got her wish. Because the version of her I loved no longer existed. I buried that woman the night she took off her ring. By the end of that week, I'd settled into a rhythm. Early mornings, black coffee, long drives. I rented a small garage space outside Jackson, a place that used to fix tractors back in the day. The owner didn't care who I was as long as I paid on time. That suited me fine. I started taking small repair jobs, old engines, farm trucks, boats that hadn't seen water in years. Work that kept my hands busy and my mind quiet. The thing about silence is, it's addictive once you stop fearing it. You start hearing things you used to miss. The sound of rain on the metal roof, the hum of an engine that finally runs smooth, your own breathing. It's strange how peace can come from total collapse. I didn't feel angry anymore, just clear. Still, there were reminders. Jenna's name popped up in local news once. Something about her attending a gala with a Nashville businessman. I recognized him from the photo at that party. The millionaire. I didn't click the article. Didn't need to. I'd already seen the headline in my head. Small-town stylist finds new love in high places. People always dress betrayal in better lighting. 2 weeks later, a letter came to the shop, forwarded from my old address. No return name, just her handwriting on the envelope. Inside, a note that read, I made a mistake. Please come back. We can fix this. And a photo of us from before, me in my work jacket, her in my arms, both of us smiling like fools who thought forever was guaranteed. I folded it once, placed it back in the envelope, and locked it in my toolbox. Not out of nostalgia, out of evidence. Proof that she knew what she'd done. That night, I sat on the steps outside the garage, watching headlights fade along the highway. I realized something then. Love doesn't end when someone cheats. It ends when you stop caring whether they did. I wasn't curious anymore. Not about her, not about him, not about what happened that night. She chose a world that sparkled for a moment. I chose the kind that lasts. And for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming of her face. 3 months passed before I heard her voice again. Not in person, not even on a call, on the radio. A local station was running an interview with a beauty brand launching a new campaign. Our featured stylist, Jenna Cole, the host said, brings small-town heart to high-end glamour. Her voice came through the static, confident, polished, rehearsed. She talked about dreams, ambition, empowerment. I almost didn't recognize her. That soft Tennessee warmth had been replaced with something sharp, almost metallic. Fame changes tone first, then eyes, then truth. I turned the dial until the music drowned her out. By then, my life had settled into quiet order. The garage was doing well. Farmers trusted me because I didn't overcharge, and word spread. I'd fixed up an old trailer out back, made it livable. My evenings were simple. Cook, work on engines, sleep. Some nights, I'd sit outside with a beer, listening to crickets and watching the stars blink through the clouds. There was no noise from the city, no lies, no pretending, just quiet. But peace never lasts when someone still feels they own your story. Late one evening, I came back from a supply run and saw a familiar car parked by the gate. Her car. She was sitting inside, headlights off, waiting. I stopped a few yards away, left the engine running. She got out slowly, wearing a white coat too expensive for the dirt lot, eyes red from crying. I didn't move, didn't say a word. She spoke first, her voice breaking. Said she'd made a mistake. Said that night meant nothing. That the millionaire was just a phase, a moment she'd been swept into. She said she missed me, missed us, missed the way things used to feel. I listened, not because I wanted to, but because silence makes people reveal themselves. When she finally stopped talking, I walked past her, unlocked the garage, and turned off the truck. She asked if I had anything to say. I did, but not to her. I opened my toolbox, pulled out the envelope she'd sent weeks before, and handed it back. You already said it all, I told her quietly. She tried to follow me inside, but I closed the door. The sound of that lock sliding into place was the last conversation we ever had. She didn't leave right away. I could hear her crying outside the door, the muffled sound of heels shifting on gravel, the quiet chaos of someone realizing the show was over. After a while, her car engine started, and the night went still again. I stood there in the dark, hands still on the lock, listening to the echo fade. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was something colder, something final. The next morning, the sun hit the side of the trailer, lighting up the dust in the air. I brewed coffee, poured one cup, and set another on the step outside out of habit. Old muscle memory. I stared at it for a long time before pouring it out. Some routines aren't worth keeping. Over the next few weeks, she tried again. Letters, calls, even a package once. Photos from when we were young, back when everything we owned could fit in the bed of my truck. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because hate requires energy. And she'd already taken enough of mine. What she didn't know was that I'd already moved my accounts, sold the house, and changed the business registration. On paper, Aaron Cole didn't exist in that town anymore. She could look for me all she wanted. I was gone. But the world has a way of circling back when you least expect it. One night, a friend from my old shop called. He said her name had come up again. Something about a scandal. Her new millionaire boyfriend. Turns out he wasn't just rich. He was married. Photos, headlines, the whole mess splashed across social media. Jenna's face was there too, tear-streaked, leaving a hotel under flashing cameras. I didn't smile, didn't feel revenge, just a strange kind of pity. She'd spent so long chasing luxury, she forgot what stability felt like. That night, I sat outside again, staring at the stars. Thought about the ring she'd taken off, the life she'd traded for a single night. People like her think power comes from being seen. But the real power, the kind that lasts, comes from disappearing and never needing to explain why. The scandal burned through the internet like gasoline on dry grass. For a week, her name was everywhere, comment sections, gossip blogs, even morning talk shows. Small-town stylist caught in millionaire affair. They turned her into a headline, a cautionary tale for people who confuse attention with affection. I didn't read the details. I didn't need to. The noise of her new world had finally swallowed her whole. Back in Jackson, my days stayed quiet. The shop kept me grounded. Fixing engines is honest work. You see what's broken, you take it apart, you rebuild it. People are harder. They hide the cracks until it's too late. One afternoon, a customer asked if I was the same Aaron who used to run a garage near Nashville. I told him no. He nodded, and that was the end of it. That's the thing about small lies. They protect the truth you've earned. A month after the scandal broke, I got a letter with no return address. Just my name written in the same looping handwriting I knew by heart. Inside was a single sentence. You were right about everything. No apology. No plea. Just that. It wasn't closure. It was confirmation. The woman who'd taken off her ring for one night had finally seen what that night really cost her. And it wasn't money. It was peace. I threw the letter in the fire barrel behind the shop and watched it burn. Paper curls fast when it's been handled too many times. I didn't feel satisfaction, just distance. Like watching someone else's story end from across a highway. Later that week, I drove out past the state line to a lake we used to visit before everything changed. The water was still, the air sharp. I sat on the hood of my truck, watching the reflection of the sky ripple and fade. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, not at myself, not even at what happened. Some endings don't need noise or revenge. They just need silence long enough for the truth to settle. And in that silence, I finally understood. She'd declared herself single for the night, but I was the one who stayed single in the morning. Winter came early that year. The mornings turned colder, the air sharper. I started keeping the heater on in the garage, not for comfort, but for company. There's something steady about the hum of a space heater. Constant, low, predictable. I like that. Predictability had become my version of peace. Work picked up after Christmas. Word had spread that I didn't ask questions, didn't gossip, didn't care who people were before they brought me their broken things. I guess that's what folks crave now, someone who fixes without judging. I could do that. Machines don't lie. Every once in a while, her name would still drift into my world. A magazine left behind at the diner, a passing comment from a customer about that makeup artist who vanished after that scandal. People said she tried to start over in Atlanta, that she was living with her sister, keeping quiet. I didn't check. The truth had already done enough damage. One night, after closing, I found myself scrolling through old photos on an old backup drive. Not to torture myself, just curiosity. There we were, at a fair, her face lit by carnival lights, cotton candy in her hand. She looked real in that picture. Not painted, not performed. Just Jenna, before she wanted to be someone else. I stared at it for a long time before deleting the entire folder. Not out of hate, out of mercy. The next morning, a storm rolled through. Heavy rain, thunder that shook the walls. I brewed coffee, sat by the window, and watched water run down the glass in long streaks. It looked like the world washing itself clean. That's when I realized something simple but true. Peace isn't something you find after the storm. It's something you build during it. Brick by brick. Silence by silence. By the end of that week, I'd made a decision. I was done surviving. It was time to start living again. The kind of life that didn't look back every time a car slowed down by the gate. I didn't know anyone's explanations. Especially not her. The only person I needed to answer to now was the man in the mirror. And for the first time in years, I could finally look him in the eye. By spring, the world had started to thaw again. Grass pushing through mud, engines rumbling back to life after the freeze. I found myself smiling more, though I didn't realize it at first. The garage had become something more than a job. It was a refuge. People came in with broken things, and I sent them back out whole. Maybe that was my version of redemption. Fix enough engines. Maybe one day you fix yourself too. One afternoon, a delivery truck pulled up outside. The driver handed me a box with no name, no return address. Inside was a set of makeup brushes, and used, pristine. At the bottom, a small note. I finally stopped pretending. No signature, but I didn't need one. I stared at those brushes for a long time. They weren't an apology. They were a confession. Maybe her way of saying she'd finally seen what chasing status had cost her. I didn't keep them. I drove to the river that night and let the box drift downstream, carried off by the same current that used to calm me when I couldn't sleep. The moonlight hit the water just right, turning it silver for a second before darkness swallowed it whole. Watching it disappear, I felt the last thread between us snap cleanly, without sound. After that, I started saying yes to life again. Took weekend trips to small towns, helped rebuild an old Chevy with a retired vet, even joined a local fishing group. Nothing dramatic, just movement. Quiet, steady movement. Sometimes, when the nights got still, I'd catch myself wondering where she was. what kind of life she'd managed to build after everything. But I never reached for the phone, because reaching backward only drags you down. And I'd climbed too far out of the wreck to look back now. One evening, a storm rolled through, the kind that shakes the windows and lights up the horizon. I sat on the porch, watching lightning split the sky. I realized something then. She had spent one night chasing the illusion of freedom. I had spent every day since living the real thing. And freedom, I learned, doesn't roar. It whispers. A year passed before I heard her name again. It came from a customer one afternoon, a woman who worked at a salon in Nashville. She mentioned a new makeup instructor who ran classes for young artists trying to start over. Her name's Jenna, she said casually. Sweet girl. Quiet. Doesn't talk much about her past. I nodded once and went back to tightening the bolts on an old carburetor. I didn't ask questions. The past didn't need revisiting. It had already served its purpose. That night, when the shop was closed and the town lights dimmed, I sat on the steps outside and thought about what that word meant. Quiet. People think it means peace. But real quiet, the kind that changes you, comes after the storm. It's not peace, it's power. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Jenna had taken off her ring and declared herself single for the night. Maybe she thought freedom lived in a champagne glass, or in the attention of a man with too much money and not enough soul. But real freedom doesn't need an audience. It doesn't glitter or perform. It just exists, steady, unbothered, like a truck engine that turns over perfectly after the 100th repair. Sometimes I still drive past the old highways, the ones that lead back toward Nashville. Not to revisit, but to remind myself how far I've come. The house we shared is long sold. The town doesn't know my name anymore. I built something different, something honest. A small life, but mine entirely. No shadows, no illusions. People ask sometimes why I never remarried. I tell them I'm not against it. But truthfully, I already had the kind of love that teaches you everything you need to know about yourself. It burned fast, it burned deep, and when it ended, it left behind something stronger than pain, clarity. So, when folks talk about revenge or closure, I just shake my head. I didn't need either. I left her with her silence, and I built my own. She declared herself single for the night. I stayed single in the morning. And in that morning, somewhere between the sound of engines and the quiet hum of peace, I realized I'd already won. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.